Hello and welcome to the distance education program of the Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Government of India and the State SSA endeavor. Friends, as elementary school teachers, we often get confused how to sequence our lessons in teaching English as a second language, because we often try to model teaching English as we teach the mother tongue. This often creates problems of learning amongst learners. To discuss this topic, I have with me today two experts, Professor Awadhesh Kumar Mishra and Dr. Sushan Kumar Mishra. Both are experts of this area, and I would like to discuss this topic with them. To begin with, Professor Mishra, what is the role of grammar in teaching English to very young learners in India?
First thing we have to understand is that grammar learning is not language learning. If you look at the way children acquire their first language, we never teach our children if they make mistakes in gender or plural. We never correct our own children in mother tongue that beta, don't say this, you should use plural form because hum in Hindi is plural, so verb should be plural. We never tell them these things. But still they are able to comprehend and use the correct grammar. So there is a blueprint, the scientists have said that, for language acquisition in brain, and the blueprint of grammar is always present there since the birth of the child. So once the child is about 1.5 years old, then her mind starts interacting with the environment, whatever input she gets, and then she builds her own rules based on the rules, the blueprints that she has in her mind, and then makes the corrections of the mistakes, and finally comes up with the correct structure, grammatically correct structures. So this is how they acquire the grammar and language. And in second language, it is not different from acquisition of mother tongue, so far as children at primary or elementary level are concerned. So we don't have to really teach grammar to teach language. Language is there. If they practice it, they get proper input, comprehensible input, and they give a lot of revision, lot of exercises and hearing inputs, then that will make them create grammatically correct sentences.
But Professor Mishra, when you are talking about mother tongue, we must realize that children talk to many people in their mother tongue, and someone or the other would correct the child. Also, they are practicing the same structures many times. But when it comes to a foreign, a language like English, which is not really used in all domains, playground, home, school, children get very little time to practice this language. So if you don't teach grammar, how do you think they would acquire this language and acquire correct?
Why I say that you don't have to really teach grammar directly is, see, grammar contains what? Grammar is actually talking about language. It's not language, because language doesn't have any content. So if you try to fill the grammar thing as content, it doesn't work, because language cannot have any content. It's abstract system, and grammar is talking about, as I mentioned, it's meta language. When you say water is a noun, you are describing language using language. That's not language at all. And look at the structure of the two languages, say Hindi and English. Noun, verb, adverb, preposition, postposition, all these things are there in both the languages. So if a child is fluent in Hindi language, then and she understands what is noun, where it comes, what is adjective, where it comes before noun or after noun, adverb comes before verb, then you don't have to teach these things afresh in English. Only thing is that you connect the new structure to the old structures that they already know. For example, it's useless to teach them that noun is the name of a person, thing or place. If you have a sentence in English like, give me water. So if the child knows Hindi language, mujhe pani do, by the virtue of being placed after the subject, mujhe, and before the verb, pani, they know that this is a noun. So in English also, they'll know that give me water. So if they know give is verb, because it's related to Hindi, the same structure, and me is a pronoun, then they will know that water is a noun. So it doesn't make any sense. Then there are problems with parts of speech in English. For example, you say that adjective modifies or qualifies something, and we assume that simple words will be there, like big, small, good, bad. These are adjectives. But look at certain constructions which are clauses or phrases, but they can be used as adjective. For example, the boy who is wearing red cap is my friend. Now the boy is subject, is my friend is there, and then who is wearing, what is that? So functionally it is an adjective. So even the definitions are not very good, they won't work. So what I say is that child has complete knowledge of the grammar in her mother tongue, and that skill, let it transfer to the second language, that is English. So you don't have to teach all the terms afresh. Only thing is, make them aware that there is some difference between the two systems. For example, in English you will have preposition, so it will come before the word, noun, and in Hindi we have postposition, comes after. But the function is same. It shows the relationship between the noun and the verb, or the pronoun and the verb, and things like that.
Good. And Dr. Mishra, I mean, would you like to add to what Professor Mishra has said right now?
Oh, yes. Professor Mishra has said it very comprehensively, but just take this example that we consider when a child comes to class 1. Okay, like for example, if we concentrate on the child between 6 to 9 years of age, by 6 years the child has knowledge of the grammar in use. We need not talk about the meta language that is there in the grammar, because the child has already acquired one functional grammar which she is using in at least one language. India is a multilingual setup, so maybe more. Maybe more. And here we should make a distinction that if a child has learnt only one language, or if the child has learnt more than one language prior to arrival of their school, prior to arrival of learning English at that stage, then we have to be very careful. Look at these 2-3 situations that I will just now describe. Normally it is a day-to-day experience that we all have. When we talk to a child, often okay, the child imitates from us, definitely, and child has an innate ability also. We try often to imitate the way child is speaking. It is an adult's play with the child. So the child is learning, we are also trying to imitate. Now the child is learning while we are trying to imitate, and child immediately gets sensitized that there is something which this adult is imitating. So there must be something different in my speech or in my behavior. The child becomes conscious. The moment the child becomes conscious, the child starts forming categories. The categories may not be named, but those ideas come. And in that process, the child starts making, in terms of language, there are other factors also, but in terms of language, the child starts making a functional grammar which she is going to use. No need to know any kind of meta language, but the child is becoming aware of the structures of the language, and that structure is being used, number one. Number two, suppose you have a child who has learnt already more than one language. There may be some mixing of the two grammatical structures in terms of vocabulary and in terms of a structure both. Yet gradually, by 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, the child is trying to distinguish automatically that these are two different language structures. Now, in this situation, if we are introducing a third language, we really need not even think of grammar, because the child is either aware of at least one functional grammar in use, or if not one, more than one. Most of the cases in India, more than one. Because many times we have the child goes to play outside the house, the child speaks in one language. In the classroom itself, the child will be exposed to other languages which the child is not using inside home or in the playground, also outside the school. So the child in Indian situation is very much aware of various structures of language without even thinking of any meta language, which is grammar basically. And in this situation, there is no need to talk even about grammar at any level.
Allow me to add, if you look at children, say in Northeast India, for example, they no one teaches them Hindi at home or in school in the beginning. Hindi is compulsory for 4 years, but it's not taught up to the age of say 9 or 10. But they all watch Hindi serials on TV, and by getting that input, because they already have a blueprint of grammar, at least of their mother tongue, and the structure of the grammatical structure of all the languages are almost similar. You can classify all the 7,000 languages into 2 or 3 categories. So that means they are all similar. So by getting that input, their mind interacts with the data, and on the basis of analogy forms own rules that oh, this is subject, this is object, without talking that mentioning the word subject, object, or indirect object and verb, etc. So the same principle can be applied in classroom also. Without talking, describing what is noun, different types of noun, different types of adjectives, if you allow them, as Sushan Mishra has already mentioned, allow them to see it in use, and let them repeat it again and again, and see the structure, make them aware of the structure, of course, indirectly, but don't directly teach the grammar.
We don't really need to teach grammar, because sometimes when we teach grammar, it becomes cumbersome and children often get scared. As it was mentioned that young children acquire language without making much effort, interacting with people in the family, in the society. And through this process, they understand that this whole process of language is rule governed and there is a grammar. They understand that there is a set of rules which governs the communication process. Now, when we switch over to a second language, that can be English, they automatically understand that there is a set of rules which will govern this as well. Isn't it?
You know what is happening? Why we emphasize too much on grammar is that if you look at the quality of teachers, their education, they are not very well versed in the methods or pedagogy or even the structure of English language. So anybody can teach grammar. It's very difficult to make children really practice language, make them proficient, but teaching grammar can be done by anybody. You don't need to know language to teach grammar. That's why they practice. And another thing is that language doesn't have any content, and we always look for, because English is a subject, so there must be some content. They teach maths, they teach social science, and something is there to be transferred. So in English there is nothing, so what to transfer? So let's transfer grammar.
Right, I think that's a very, very important issue, that when we teach mathematics, we transact some content, we teach some content, but what do we teach when we are teaching a language? So it becomes very easy for the teacher to think of grammar as content and transact that content. Let us refrain from it, friends, because when we are teaching English or English as a second language to children, we must realize that we don't have to transfer content all the time. We are developing certain skills in the child which would ultimately work as a medium for communicating with others, expressing one's own views. So don't always think
you learn language by using it.
Yes,
you don't learn language by learning it.
By learning it, great. How do we really make students, very young children, use this? Because then they need a corpus of vocabulary. They need these words through which they can.
So if you look at, see, there are many languages in which you find you won't find sentences. So one word will contain all the idea, and it so happened even in Sanskrit, there one word will tell everything that a sentence can tell you. And still there are many tribal languages, one word, polysynthetic languages, Eskimo, and everything is conveyed through that. So when we store words in our long-term memory, we don't store only the pronunciation. It's morphology, structure, grammar, its category, with which word it will go well with, collocation, everything is stored at the same time. So grammar doesn't exist without words. So word itself has it. So that's why it becomes more so important whether you teach or learn reading, writing, speaking, listening. Word or vocabulary is the core component of it. All the skills depend on it.
Can you think of some exercises or something which we can in our elementary classrooms do to?
Yes. There are many exercises which can be suggested. Like we can talk of semantic mapping. If you can think of a particular area for which there may be a lesson, on river, or whatever be the world around that child in that classroom. Okay, so you can ask the children to think of the words of that area. Whatever they see day to day, you can ask them to have 4 words, 5 words, 2 words each, okay, of a particular related area. You can, let's say, you can think of birds, whatever animals they see around them, whatever trees they see around them, whatever clothes they wear. So the moment you have all these kinds of area, which is of the lived experience of the children, they will be interacting with each other. So we learn the language and vocabulary while interacting with each other. Now what we have to do, we don't have to stop exactly at collecting the words, because words has grammar, but grammar is in use and in terms of sentences. Okay, it can be put in various theories, etc. Also, that sentence is the basic unit, but not going into any of these things. The moment the children have collected words, you now ask them to interact with each other. See, there can be 2 exercises. One, that you ask them to write something, forming basic sentences, or at the age of 9 also, 9, 10, etc. they write basic simple paragraphs also sometimes. They can be asked to write 5 sentences, 4 sentences which are related. Not only that, with the same kind of exercises, they should be asked to talk to each other. You give them some group activities. Think of the situation that you have taken children to the garden of the school. They have collected a few words. They are playing with flowers, etc. Everything. They have collected a few words there. Now ask them to talk about that with each other in a group. First you talk about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, if it is a class of, I presume, 35 minutes, then 10 minutes you send them to the garden. 10 minutes they have come back. After that, ask them to talk about it within themselves for about 10 minutes. After that, you ask them to write.
Okay.
So now communication, speaking skill will be there. Of course, we can identify these skills separately. Writing skill will be there. But what is more important is that vocabulary, grammar in the context of communication is being somehow internalized.
Right. Yeah.
Before that,
I think, Professor Mishra, you have been involved in developing textbooks for many states of India. How do you incorporate this aspect in the textbooks?
Before going into that, one thing is very important so far as vocabulary is concerned, and that is we have to understand that how we comprehend and store words. See, one thing is that in second language, English or any other second language, you have to keep in mind that words are stored on the basis of the first sound of the word. Because when like I am talking to you and I utter about 15 to 20 words at least in a minute, and there is a gap and you have to comprehend it also. It happens so fast. So how do you do that? You don't pay attention to every consonant and vowel of the words that I have uttered. So brain anticipates the moment first sound is heard, then brain anticipates what is going to come up next, and the meaning is already prepared for that. So you have to keep this in mind while selecting the words. Now, what kind of words you select, that will determine the success of a student. And many researchers have found that, including Safir, that the most basic words are those which have say one syllable, monosyllabic or bisyllabic. So you'll find across all the languages, the most frequently used words, most important words won't have more than 2 vowels in them.
Can you give us
For example, take English, you take verb, any verb, give, come, go, any verb, they won't have, the basic verbs won't have more than 1 vowel. You look at noun, so more than 2 vowels you won't find. Water, book, any basic word, they won't contain more than 2 syllables. And the newer words, or those who are academic or which have come later, compounds, there you will have many more syllables. So selection of words is also very important. And those words need to be recycled again and again. Then there should be a balance between the old words and new words. Suppose in class 1 you have taught them 5 new words in the first day. Then next day you take 2 or 3 new words from there and add one more word. So it should be based like that. And then the number of different types of words is also very important. If you have more nouns on every page, or if you are talking and all the time you have say new words only and function words are less, function words like the words that occur again and again, like is, am, are, I, you, 1, 2, 3, he, she, it, they don't need to be practiced a lot. So keep a balance between that. More function words and fewer number of content words, mix old and new words so that it is recycled. So they have to construct new knowledge of new words, new meaning of new words, something to base upon, and that will lead them to better development of vocabulary.
Can you also quickly explain what do you mean by function words and content words?
Okay, function words, they don't refer to any idea, anything in the real world. Like, for example, I. So every human being, when he starts speaking, is I, and you. Every human being who listens to someone is you. Every man who is not present, about whom you are talking, is he. So he doesn't have any fixed meaning. But when you say water, then it refers to something. When you say go, it refers to some action. So verbs, adjectives, they are the content words. And some adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, articles, they are function words. So keep more number of function words and fewer number of content words in a graded manner, and keep a target that how many words you will teach them, new words. So that will lead to better development.
That is very helpful, Professor Mishra. I think we have got two things. One is that grammar should not precede the teaching process. It should not be the beginning of the teaching process.
It should be inbuilt in the.
It should be inbuilt. And when we start by teaching grammar, it often puts down our learners and they are scared of that language. Second very important thing is that we should understand which type of words should we select and how should we develop those words. For that, content words are important, because as young learners they can see these things and they can relate it and they can pronounce it. But structured words are difficult to understand and remember, so they should follow. Perhaps our classrooms would better learning place and faster learning of English would take place in the schools if we can understand this, practice this. And would you like to add something?
Yeah, actually there is one thing that we were discussing about the content, and now once we have talked about the content words and the function words, at the primary level we should be very clear that only the class of English is not the English teaching class. The other subjects also you may be teaching in mother tongue itself, yet you can think of using some English words, because somehow most of the times we are living in bilingual situation, we are using English, whether you go to television or news channels, whatever.
At least 2000 to 3000 words from English are found in every language of India.
Yes. So we have to use that also. So that repertoire is always there with the child. Whether the child has learnt or not, but the child may be listening. The adults are talking around that child.
So as Professor Mishra says, there are about 2000 English words in every Indian language. So we as teachers of English should try to find out which are those words and use them for our communication with children and make them understand that these can be used when they are speaking in English.
That these are English like bus, ticket, school, class, all this chalk, duster, board.
And most of them are monosyllabic or bisyllabic. Most of them very simple and common words.
What do you mean by monosyllabic? Again, for the benefit of my friends.
For very simply put, as Professor Mishra has already put, where we have only one vowel
in a
or
word.
We have two vowels. Mostly when we speak, forget about the writing aspect. When we speak, you will see consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel. You might stop there itself. So you will have 2-3 consonants and 2 vowels. The basic.
So these words should be
and try to amalgamate teaching of English in teaching other subjects also. Little bit. No need to force, no need to pressurize, but little bit. And that will have an immense benefit for latter years for the child.
And not only that, so in vocabulary has to be graded. Why? Because after certain years they have to transfer to English language maybe. When they go to class 11 or they go to university, they have to do everything in English. So building up academic vocabulary is also important. So first 3 years you focus on the interpersonal communication skill, where they learn basic English, like how to use English in classroom, in canteen, among friends and all that, and then build vocabulary of academic subjects also.
And this first 3 years depends upon the situation. Because suppose you have started from class 1, then think of 3 years from there. If you have started, because there are many states where you start in class 1, in class 3, class 4, class 6.
Right.
Depending upon the situation, you think of these 3 years and 5 years, think of that. Think of your situation where you are functioning.
Okay.
And accordingly you grade.
We have to situate the teaching of English in our context. If we are starting in class 1, this particular strategy will have to be adopted. But when we are starting in class 3, the same strategy will have to be adopted, because the learners are starting to learn English at that level. But then, as Professor Mishra mentioned, there are about 2000 words in all Indian languages, and we can start
Major
from
Indian
there.
languages.
Indian languages. So we can start from there and build on it. I am sure, friends, you will realize that this discussion would be of great help if we can understand this and adopt this in our teaching learning process. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Professor Mishra.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sushan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.